The views expressed and the opinions given by the individual host, guest, random reptoid, or chupacabra may not necessarily reflect those of AM 950 Radio, its affiliates, or its sponsors. Now, it's time to step into the unknown. The best of GhostBox Radio with Greg Bakun.
This is the best of GhostBox Radio with Greg Bakun on AM 950. Tonight we're going to play parts of interviews from 3 different guests. We've had some amazing people appear on the show, and we think that they should be heard from again. Enjoy the show. I'm very happy right now. I have with me Scott Michaels, Dearly Departed podcast, Dearly Departed YouTube channel, a lot of great content. Also, check out findadeath.com. Yeah, I mean, Scott said that he hasn't updated it recently, but there are hundreds of people to look up and read about on there. Scott, do you want to take some questions and see what's out there?
Happy to, Greg.
Let's do it. First of all, because I have lots of questions, but I think I'd rather have some of these fans who keep saying stuff like Scott's the best guest and has so many wonderful stories to share. The chat has just been filled with all of that. Heather does ask, did you know that Tiny Tim is buried in Minneapolis? I think he's actually buried in this radio station, as it happens. No, he's not. But
well, actually, I do, because I have the receipt from his grave purchase that his widow had. I actually got the cemetery receipt for payment of Tiny's grave. So yeah, I am familiar with that one. Thank you.
How do you have this? Why do you have this? I love it.
That was a donation, actually, because I love Tiny Tim. I have a lot of Tiny Tim memorabilia, and there was someone who was friends with Tiny Tim's widow and said, "I have these unusual items. Would you like them? I'd be happy to donate them." And I got a swatch from the jacket that he wore on the night that he died. When he was on stage, he collapsed on stage, or just as he was leaving stage. And I got these wonderful, bizarre items, which is really appropriate for Tiny Tim because he was such a wonderful and bizarre guy.
Now, if someone is a death hag, is it when they actually provide information about anyone who passed, any stars that passed, or is it just something that anyone could be a death hag?
Well, sure. I mean, just it's a matter of admitting that you're interested. I mean, now it's all very, it's nothing anymore. But there was a time when I started Find a Death back in '98, which is, I don't know how many years ago that is now, but there were no true crime networks.
No.
There was no internet yet, or the internet had just started. Find a Grave had just started. Yeah. So there wasn't, like, I remember Google didn't even happen yet. And if you wanted to use, there was no image searching. So when I was writing these pictures or these stories about, like, Ava Gabor, I had to find a Green Acres book and I had to scan it in myself. There was no image search. So this is really a long, long time ago.
Yeah.
And I just say there was a time when people used to be ashamed to be interested in this. Now, they would buy their true crime magazines to kind of hide it in the back of their grocery bag. Now there's 24/7 networks, so you don't have to be afraid or to admit it. But back then it was a little bit, it was a bit edgy to say you were interested in that.
I mean, because I wasn't sure if you had to be like involved with something to actually become a death hag. Because I think to myself, do I have anything that I could be close to being of that ilk? And the closest I ever got was I dated one of the secretaries of Paisley Park, and so we had seen one of Prince's notorious like 2:30 in the morning shows or whatever. But
wow.
I dated her after she left Paisley Park. But she told the stories of you. These are true stories that you were not allowed to look at him. You are not allowed. Like when he would walk in the room, like Majesty. You'd put your head down and not look directly at him, and the drug abuse and all that stuff that was rampant back in 98, 99. So it was really interesting, and somewhere there is, in a vault somewhere, there's that elevator footage of him
Hmm.
collapsing and dying. You know,
Yeah, yeah,
does that
yeah.
stuff?
That's fascinating, I mean, those are kind of, she's confirming with you what we kind of
Yeah,
already knew about him. And then you hear these other stories about him with the basketball games, the crazy basketball games, like Charlie Murphy told the story about that, and then you hear about just the bizarre behavior, which I love. It's just that extreme behavior. How he wore his, didn't he wear his like high heeled boots when he was playing
totally,
basketball?
absolutely,
I love that
absolutely.
kind of stuff. It's so, the extreme always makes an impression.
And are you interested in and this is kind of a weird question. Are you interested in the footage of some of these things, like the Prince footage, other stuff? And I ask that because I thought I was, and then shortly after Michael Jackson passed away, that someone leaked out that footage from that Pepsi commercial where he starts on fire, and it's like, oh wow, this I kind of I'm curious to see what it was. I watch it, and it's far worse than anything that like had been recreated in the Michael Jackson biofilms and stuff like that. And I thought, oh, that. I guess I went too far this time. I think I went a step too far in my interest in these things.
Well, yeah, I guess, I mean, and fair enough, you know your own boundaries.
Yeah.
I've always said that I don't want to see a picture of somebody getting run over by a train. I have no interest in that.
Hmm.
However, if Marilyn Monroe was hit by a train, I'd watch. I would, if
Yep.
I had the opportunity to see because I'm curious. I want to see that. So, I don't want to see people get beheaded. That's the most horrible thing to watch. Innocent people, those terrible things happening to people. But I have seen that, and I regret looking at it. However, if it's somebody that's well known, it's part of the package.
Yeah.
I think, and it could be considered invasion of privacy, but they're public figures, so there's a fine line, and I know I dance all over that line back and forth. So,
And a close one to that also is like the Paul Walker footage
mhm.
of like the crash. I mean, I
Yeah.
don't know if there's actually footage of the crash per se, but I mean, you get enough of it.
Yeah, there are photos. I mean, there is a photo that's out there that's definitely of him afterwards in the car still.
It's
And
on your page, isn't it? Isn't it in
oh, it
his?
probably
I
is
think I
actually.
think it
Yeah.
because I think you actually and folks, once again, if you don't like hearing this type of stuff, this might not be the episode to listen
Yeah.
to. But you actually have it where you like out you outline
Yeah. Well,
him.
no, because it's a fact. I mean, we're not dressing it up. It's a
No,
death
no, this
happened.
is where Paul Walker is on
Yeah,
in
and
that
here
car.
he
It's
is. If you want to
melted.
see it, here. But if you don't.
Yeah,
And take responsibility for your own actions. Don't blame it on somebody else if you saw something you don't want to see.
exactly.
And don't look at it if you don't want to. It doesn't matter to me. But for those that do, I think it's a worthy. I think it's a curiosity that deserves to be acknowledged.
And there's a lot of us out there. There's just a lot of us out there who really love this stuff. Okay, I know this story, but Karen's asking for you to tell it again, and I think it is a great one. I was just thinking about this, the story of buying D. Martin a beer, and also is his old house in Palm Springs renovated yet?
The house, Troy and I drove past the house probably 2 or 3 weeks ago. And the only thing that's different is, the trees have been, I think one or two trees are gone, and there's a fence around it now, one of those temporary chain link fences with the green tarp over it. So there was some movement, but not within the house. The house is boarded up a little bit more.
Mm.
I'm pretty sure the house has been sold. Well, and they're going to do something with it. I'm pretty sure those fences there probably because of me. And again, I didn't set out to upset anybody, but I walked around the house with a camera because I want to see D. Martin's house.
Hmm.
And that video has gotten like 2 million views. So yeah, I feel a little guilty, but I was only providing a service, and I thought it was an interesting service. And D. Martin was a nice guy, and I didn't know him, but I met him, and when I first moved to LA in the early '90s, Dean Martin would go to this restaurant called the Hamburger Hamlet,
Hmm.
and he would watch the baseball game on Sunday afternoons, and you would set your watch by him. 1 o'clock on Sunday afternoons, he and his a chauffeur or assistant he would, walk in with Dean. Dean would sit down at the table, and an assistant would, go and leave, and Dean would have his dinner, or I should say lunch. And I would take people there to see him when my sister came to visit, and we went to go see Dean Martin. We never bothered him, but it was just something how cool is this? We get to go see Dean Martin when we want to. And but one day I decided I wanted to meet him, and I went alone, and I sat at the bar, and I sat at the one seat at the bar that blocked his table's view of the baseball game. I knew he would be able to see it, and so I sat there, and he came in, and he tapped me on the shoulder after a couple of minutes and asked me if I wouldn't mind moving. And I said, yeah, sure, no problem. And I did, and the bartender came over and said, Mr. Martin would like to buy you a drink. And I got a beer, which I saved the bottle. And I walked over to him, shook his hand, and talked to him for a second. I mentioned Marilyn Monroe. I mentioned Sharon Tate, because it was my moral obligation to do that. And, just to get a comment, they were very nice nice women, or something to that effect. There was nothing of any depth to it, but it was just my moral obligation to mention those two names with Dean Martin. And he was terrific. So, now I have that story, and the beer bottle.
And I don't think it is hyperbole to say that they don't have them like him anymore, right? I mean, I think it's especially based on your own experience, that there aren't people. There's nice people out there, nice stars. I understand that, but that is truly a different era altogether. That doesn't exist anymore.
They had a track record. They've been around for a really long time. They had, hit movies. They had recordings that we knew. And, the movies, MGM was kicking out, 4 or 8 movies a year, or one a month or something, or one every 2 weeks. I don't know. We weren't inundated. We didn't have 800 channels. We didn't have, channels desperately pumping out more and more garbage or shows or whatever, and 25,000 movie studios that are always making movies. And we didn't get foreign films. Foreign films were like at one theater, and now they're the crazy art films or something. So it's all different. We have so much information, and there's not a lot of quality information or projects that and there's a lot of quality that we don't see, which is unfortunate. But the personalities just don't really shine through anymore. They're just actors, and they're talented, and they look pretty, and they look great, but just they don't have the charm or something. That's the individuality.
Yeah, it's very different. And I mean, I suppose that people who are younger are going to look at down the line, they will have some complaints about the next era of stars.
God,
and whatnot.
What can that be? It's going to be AI, isn't it? It's just going to be not
True.
Real people.
Oh God.
So yeah, that's that. Because where else can it go from here but that?
I was thinking Dean Martin to me still is the epitome of cool. It just really is. And I think about, of course I can't think of the name of the spy films he did in the 60s, the 3 of
the Matt Helm movies.
Matt Helm movies. God, they're good. They're so good I can't remember the name of them, obviously, but they are really, it's a lot of fun. It's everything that I've seen him in has been, I really enjoy. Now let's see here. Got some low-hanging fruit here that I'm not sure if you like to answer or not, but I mean, why not ask? Who's the worst celebrity you've ever met? Right?
Well, I mean, that's if I was more prepared, I could probably think of somebody better. But the one that comes to mind the most or the quickest is Billy Zane, and that's he's another one that I just think he's a dick, and he was a dick. he's a total dick, and to me a couple of times, not just once. So, and other people I know. So yeah, he's just not a nice person. Just definitely not cool.
And getting back real fast to the the Dean Martin thing, do you think? Especially you're in the hub of it, so to speak. Do you think that were you ever surprised with how easy it was to have interactions with some of these stars back in the day?
In retrospect, yeah, certainly. We were able to. I mean, you could go to backstage doors. When Larry King was doing his show, it was live, so you could drive over to the theater and to the building and see the people that were coming out if you wanted to meet them. You could meet people backstage at plays, what they were doing. I met a ton of people that way. And I was fortunate enough to be involved in television for a while when I lived in England.
Mm-hmm.
So I was able to meet a lot of people that way. Things are different now. I remember back in the 90s when I first moved to LA, we would go garbage picking at celebrities' houses. I never claimed to be classy in any way, so I really don't care. I gave up defending myself a long time ago too, because I just figured, you don't like me, that's cool.
Yeah. You are listening to the best of GhostBox Radio with Greg Bakun. Remember, you can hear full past episodes, see upcoming events, and order books of the authors we have on the show by going to ghostboxradio.com. Don't forget to like us over on Facebook, look us up at GhostBox Radio with Greg Bakun, and finally, please consider supporting me on Patreon. We have a special, unique audio content that you'll not find anywhere else, plus special episodes. On Patreon, you can find me as GhostBox Radio with Greg Bakun. We'll be back with another guest after the break. You're listening to GhostBox Radio on AM 950.
The best of GhostBox Radio with Greg Bakun.
We have Tom Conwell with us, ufologist, and we've been talking about the night visitants. And I'm always very reluctant to have to interrupt a story to go to break, but sometimes we have to. So we were talking about the first story in the book of the night visitants, and a very strange occurrence of somebody. And you said that they claimed that they're in the Coast Guard, right, Tom?
Yeah, that's what he said.
And that they took you to the place. And I remember while reading the book and reading that part of it, that it really came across that, number one, it doesn't seem to me very often that you are actually going to meet people at places, but also it seemed like that was kind of frustrating that the place that he wanted you to go after you had your first meeting was like an hour away. And then you talked about how the equipment was really pretty high quality stuff. And where we kind of ended off was that it sounded like that maybe this person isn't exactly what he says he is, and it might even be like an FBI agent or something.
I have been interviewed quite a few times with my time in the Navy and my security clearances that by the FBI.
Yeah.
And you can just tell. I mean, I don't want to be disrespectful, but you can just tell when someone is from the FBI. I mean, you just know it. Mm-hmm. And this guy came across like that.
Yeah.
Well, he said, he kept saying, "What do you think of this, Tom?" Well, then we jumped to something. He said, "Tom, do you think that I have ghosts in the house?" And I said, based on what I'm seeing here, it almost seems like you have elementals.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So I said that what I could do for you is to try to contact a local shaman and get them out here and have them bless your house. And usually that takes care of something in the way of elementals. Mm-hmm. And I think he thought maybe I was shutting him down or something. He said to me, "Tom, do you want to see a ship?" And what do you mean a ship? He said, a UFO. And I said, well, you have a video of one? He said, yes, it's up on the server. Well, that's another thing that bothered me. All right. If he has a server that's doing all this stuff, he spent an awful lot of money on this thing. Okay. But anyhow,
right.
We'll go out. We had to go outside. We're on a downstairs, almost like a Florida room. Okay.
Yep.
And he took us out back and up the stairs into his back door, and he got his keys out, and he couldn't get his own door open.
Like he's never been there before?
Just like that.
Yeah.
Okay. And he eventually was fumbling around and he got the door open, and he opened it up and said, you'll have to excuse the mess inside. Well, everything was perfect. There was no mess. I mean, everything was perfect. He had a shirt, or it could have been a light jacket, over the back of a chair. But other than that, there was nothing out of place in here. Almost like he had a group of people come in and stage the house. So anyhow, we went into the other room and we put his server on and got the monitor on. And he said, let me call that up for you, Tom. Now, I was pretty familiar with this software that he used. I've seen it before. And he couldn't get his software running. I didn't say anything to him. I mean, I could have wrecked him right there, but no, I was patient.
Yep.
And he finally got something running, and he showed me this picture of a UFO that was about 20 feet. I'm going to repeat that. It was about 20 feet from the camera.
Huh.
It was just enormous, and you could see incredible features on the thing. It almost looked like piping, but it wasn't piping. I don't know what it was, but he showed me the entire underside of this craft as it went by his camera. And he said, isn't that unbelievable? And I said, where was this picture taken? He said, from the camera, and he pointed over to the window. The window camera, he says, is pointing up, and this thing went by it. I went, okay. So the first thing I did was check on the window. Yep. I walked over to the window and looked out, and there was an awful lot of leaf cover.
Oh.
So there's no way it was taken from that camera.
Wow.
As a matter of fact, it was so clear and bright that it looked like it was taken in the desert Southwest.
Nowhere even near where you were.
That's what it looked like.
Wow.
Okay.
Yep.
So, we said that everything was great, and we thanked them profusely for showing us the video. And he said, I need to ask you, Tom, what are you going to do with this information? Yeah, what are you going to do with this information? And I said, well, can I have a copy of the video? And now, before I could even get video out, he said no. So I said, well, I guess there's nothing I can do with it, is there? Huh. And he said, no, I guess not. So anyhow, we left the house. There were three of us. We left the house out the back door, the same door he couldn't get in before. So we went out the back door and down the stairs to the sidewalk, and the sidewalk went around the house to the front where we had parked our cars. So the first thing I did when I got out there is I looked up at where the camera was.
Yep.
And there was a total and complete canopy coverage. And in other words, perhaps some light streamed through in spots, but that's about all you'd get through.
So impossible.
Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely.
So I didn't say anything to him. I didn't say anything to anybody else, and I didn't publicize that event. But I sure as heck didn't forget about it.
Did you ever feel, because the one thing that I was when I was reading it, I just felt to myself, this just feels like you had someone with you, but it just felt dangerous. Did you ever feel like in any danger or anything?
You bet. I thought I wasn't coming home that night.
Wow.
I mean, that's exactly how I felt when he started to grill me with, "What do you think of this, Tom?" Yeah, that was my first thought.
You got to wonder what would have happened when he said, "What are you going to do with this?" And say that you were like, "Well, I'm going to maybe not write something that leaves your name out of it, or something, or just anything." You got to wonder what the purpose was and what they wanted to do with you. That's frightening.
I think what they wanted was to find out what I knew.
Sure.
And they wanted me to spill everything, because when I wrote the blogs that I later turned into a book, Going Interstellar,
mm-hmm.
when I wrote these blogs, they got a little bit technical at times. But what I tried to do is, when there was a highly technical subject, I tried to get super simple so that everybody could pick up this book and read it and understand where I was coming from. So, and also what I did was I kept the price of this book artificially low so that everybody could buy it, that there'd be no excuse.
And you know what I'm going to do? I think, is this available on Amazon?
Yes, it is.
Because I'm gonna go ahead. What I do, Tom, is on GhostBoxRadio.com. I do what's called the GhostBox Book Club, and I'll add that to it for people who it's just easy for people to go and see all the authors we have on, and they can find your book and order it as well. So
Wonderful.
It's just nice and easy. You know, this is really something. And you know, one of the things that Anna Maria talked about when we had our conversation was the non-alien entities, and you had talked about elementals. She had talked about stories with something that could well have been like a Sasquatch or something, also like possibly a reptoid. Is this something that's in your wheelhouse in terms of not surprising, or was that even surprising to you?
Well, that was kind of surprising to me when I had read it. I don't know anything about that particular subject,
mm-hmm.
and don't profess to. So when I read about it in the book, I thought it was pretty interesting.
It is, and it just kind of what's interesting about that. It really kind of the Night Visitants takes and brings pretty much everything into it, which is kind of cool, actually. As far as your experience, though, and kind of getting away from the book per se, but your own experiences, you get these messages, you relay them. Do you ever see who's giving you those messages?
No, and I have been asking at night
mm-hmm.
that it's time that we meet. I'd like to talk with you. So one of the things that happened to me was a dream that I had. I suspect it wasn't a dream. I think they influenced it. But I found myself walking down a path in the fall,
mm-hmm.
and it was damp outside. And because it was the fall, all the leaves had fallen down. And as I'm walking, the leaves are sticking to my feet. And I walk out and around a corner, and there was this white egg-shaped ship.
Oh.
It was only about 6 feet tall. And there was a guy sitting outside of it. And as I walked up toward him, I realized I couldn't look at him. He was made out of light, and he was just brilliant. I couldn't even see him. I could just see the peripheral of him. And he said to me, we would like to borrow your energy so you can heal the person who's my shipmate, the person with me on the ship.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, is this your ship right here? And he said, yes. And I remember looking at it. The thing was only 6 feet high. How the heck could he be flying in a ship that's only 6 feet high?
Right.
And he was about 5 feet. So
that's cramped.
What the heck was that, you know? So he said, why don't you come on the ship, and my friend will tell you what you need to do. So, well, since this was a since this was a dream, I said, sure, I'll come on the ship. So I walked onto the ship, and as soon as I stepped inside this thing, I looked around, and it was, well, huge.
Bigger on the inside than out, huh?
Oh, my goodness sakes. It was absolutely huge.
Yeah.
And he walked me over to where his friend was lying. He was lying down, and he said to me, just stand there while I use your energy, and you can heal me.
Wow.
And I remember standing there for some short period of time, and then he got up, and he was fine. And he said, I want to thank you very much for sharing your energy with me. Perhaps we'll meet again. So he walked me off of his ship, down the little stairway, and I started walking toward my house, and bingo, I woke up in bed. And the first thing I did when I woke up in bed is I reached down for my feet, because I knew that there were leaves stuck to my feet. But my feet were slightly damp, or maybe that was just me, but there were no leaves on my feet.
Wow.
Which would have been interesting. But it was that real, Greg.
You are listening to the best of GhostBox Radio with Greg Bakun. Remember, you can hear full past episodes, see upcoming events, and order books of the authors we have on the show by going to GhostBoxRadio.com. Don't forget to like us over on Facebook, look us up at GhostBox Radio with Greg Bakun, and finally, please consider supporting me on Patreon. We have a special, unique audio content that you'll not find anywhere else, plus special episodes. On Patreon, you can find me as GhostBox Radio with Greg Bakun. We'll be back with another guest after the break. You're listening to GhostBox Radio on AM 950.
The best of GhostBox Radio with Greg Bakun.
We have Gary Galka with us tonight. We've been talking about the PSB-7 Pro. We've been talking about spirit boxes in general, which is one of the things that I am always talking about. And in fact, I'm really considering if I pick up this new box, well, when I pick up the new box, I might start up those Sunday night sessions again. And I'm really I love using the box, Gary, to bring through people's loved ones and stuff. And it's been quite an amazing journey for that. Gary, I'd like to play something for you though before we play more of your stuff, because I just felt like I really don't get the opportunity to talk with you a whole lot, and I want to play with you one of the first spirit box responses I ever got when I tried the PSB-7 so many years ago. I didn't know what I was doing. This was the first day that I ever even put this in my hand. We were at my old work, the Wyman building in downtown Minneapolis. The building was built in 1916. When I turned on the equipment for the first time, when I turned on the box for the first time, I asked if somebody's here, can you give me your name, please? And with the first question I ever asked, the name came through with Nate. I mean, right away, I fell in love with it. But this recording changed my life, and it put me on the trajectory that it was today. So it's a bit important to me, and it's very humbling, actually. But this is later that night when we were investigating. We were upstairs, my friend Jeff and I just say to Spirit, my name is Greg, this is Jeff. Could you please say Greg and Jeff? And this is the response we got.
Greg, Jeff.
I'm going to play it again.
Greg, Jeff.
Yeah, it's perfect.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah, perfectly clear.
And I mean, that recording changed my life. It put me where I am today, using your box and using right away. It's like, if this is what paranormal investigating is, I'm all about it. Yes, please give me some of this. So yes, fantastic.
Nice. Very good.
Thank you very much. It was it was really something. Now I want to play, let's see if I can find it now, since since I moved everything around here. Okay. I want to play what we were talking about when you said they're talking about the theory. And I have that recording, if that works for you.
Sure. Yeah.
Right, here we go.
Yeah.
So your words are formed with thoughts, correct? Correct? Pretty amazing how you combine the frequencies with your thoughts, isn't it?
Thanks for sharing that.
Okay. Did you hear all that, Greg?
I didn't hear. First of all, I heard correct. So I got that. The rest is a little vague for me. Can we play it again?
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's do it.
So your words are formed with thoughts, correct? Correct? Pretty amazing how you combine the frequencies with your thoughts, isn't it?
Thanks for sharing that.
Okay. Let me explain something to you.
Please do.
So, all right. So the first spirit, the male, says correct. He acknowledges that thoughts, your thought energy, does indeed change the frequencies. Then the next one said, the next female said, and visual, and vision, and visual. That's her response. Okay. And then the last one was, we warp it. So we warp the frequencies. Okay, so that's where so my theory has always been, because a lot of times when my daughter interacts with me, it's always through telepathy, through thoughts. So when I communicate and have conversations with her when I'm sleeping or in that altered state of consciousness, she's there, she's talking to me, and we're carrying a conversation. Well, everything in the spiritual realm is thought energy. I've had out-of-body experiences. Okay, if I wanted to go through a door, all it had to be was a thought. Next thing I know, I'm gliding through a door in the room. So these are all different things that you begin to realize. You piece those puzzle pieces together over time, and that's all spirits have really, are thoughts and visualization. That is their soul, their mind, so to speak. Okay, so they can think as clearly as you and I can think.
So you explained what was being said. Why don't we listen to it one more time so everyone can kind of have because we can close the loop on this one. Here you go.
Mm-hmm.
So your words are formed with thoughts, correct? Correct? Pretty amazing how you combine the frequencies with your thoughts, isn't it?
Thanks for sharing that.
Okay, yeah, absolutely.
So, that's
so you cracked the shell, you cracked the nut, basically.
Yeah, I mean it's. But see, you have to understand, my journey has been tenfold. I've had out of body experience. I've had astral travel. I've been to the hereafter. My daughter's physically shown me the hereafter. I've had so many communications with loved ones through my mind while I'm sleeping, and in altered states of consciousness. So, this to me, when I talk to spirits, they're not really spirits to me. Okay, they're people. Yep. They're people in spirit form. So I treat them with the same level of dignity and respect I would teach or treat you, and I teach them the same types of things with my equipment that I would teach somebody who's learning Spirit Box for the first time. So when I sit down with them, I tell them, focus your thoughts for me, please. I want this to be as clear as possible. Visualize what you want to say to me. So I've had responses from Spirit saying, Gary's teaching us something. Those were the responses. Gary's teaching us something. So that really means a lot to me, because it's a totally different approach than most people would ever expect to hear.
And I think that's it. And I guess that's what I was kind of getting at the top of the program, is not when I said that we have the same way of doing things. I meant the ideology of it. Yeah. Because that is really what it comes down to. And you're right. And it takes. I love those people, such as myself, such as many friends of mine who I investigate with, who look at spirits as people. That you look at them as we don't treat anyone any different. In fact, make it a little bit, try to make it as easy as possible.
Mm-hmm.
So, so everything that you've done up to this point well, maybe not now, I guess, in a sense, because you are so evolved in that area. But originally, everything that you had done to create this equipment was to be able to communicate with Melissa.
Well, correct. Okay, the reason I was communicating with Melissa in so many different ways. I mean, but
Sure.
And so weren't my other two daughters and my wife and everything else. But I was hearing from so many people after the Ghost Adventures episode. I was hearing from hundreds and hundreds of people, and they all wanted to be able to communicate with their children. And what do you say to these people? I mean, so I'm thinking, okay, what could I do to help people to maybe have an experience like mine? Because many of them never had an experience at all. And I can't explain the reason why I would have an experience and another mom and dad who love their child just as much didn't have an experience. Why would that be?
Yeah.
That was an emotional thing for me to have somebody ask for help, and then I didn't know what to do. So really the spirit box for me was something that I did to try to help other people. And as a result, Greg, in all honesty, I've received countless numbers of emails from people who said, I've talked to my son or I've talked to my daughter. I know they're safe. Okay. And that's all I really cared about.
I hear you. And and only reason why I'm going to say this, because I feel like when you say something, I respond as almost like a competition. I'm just so excited to be able to talk with you. And I wanted just to share, I was doing an event at Hotel Josephine just last year. And like I said, I do these sessions where I reach out to people's loved ones and stuff. And someone heard about that and they pulled me aside and said, today is the anniversary of my father's death. Would you try to reach out to him for me? And I said, I'll do my best. I can't guarantee anything. And I sat down with them during a break and I put on the box and I do it the way that I normally do it. And obviously we don't know what other people's relatives sound like or what they're saying and stuff. And I asked for this gentleman's name to come through, and you start hearing a male voice. And I look at the mother, and there are tears running down her face. And she's like, that's his voice.
Yeah.
And I haven't heard that voice in 12 years. And that is why I do this also. I don't create equipment. I don't know how. And the way that you're talking and stuff, I'm just in awe with the brilliance that you bring to the equipment. But what I do is take your equipment and I do very similar to what you have been doing and what you wanted the purpose of this equipment to be.
And, I admire that. I very much, Greg. And, I don't get to see every single person out there and how they're using the devices or what they're doing with it. But when I hear that kind of a story, okay, then I know that I've done the right thing.
Yeah.
Over time, I've been selling this thing for 15 years, and there are many, hundreds of thousands of SB7s all over the world. So, with that said, you have to take and know that a percentage of those being used by the right people are doing good somewhere along the way. So that's important to me. And do you want to play any more of the clips? There's a couple.
Absolutely, yes. Let's do it.
There's one there with the SB7 Pro where I ask him, how are you doing today? And he says, I'm feeling pretty good.
Got it.
Do you see that one?
I got it. Let's.
Boy, you're fast.
You know what? That's the name of the game around here, right? So, do you want to set it up, or do you just want us to play it?
Well, what was happening is I was just getting ready to alter some of the software. I was just changing some of the sweep speeds, and I was sitting down. And I don't do sessions like you're thinking about. When I do a thing, it's more of a test,
sure. And
I get interactions from spirits as I'm doing it. So I just casually said, "Hey, how you feeling today?" And this is the response.
Here we go.
Yep. How's everyone doing today?
I feel pretty good.
You feel pretty good? I'm glad to know that you're feeling well.
Yeah, that's great. We're going to play that again, folks. That's really good. Here we go.
How's everyone doing today?
I feel pretty good.
You feel pretty good. I'm glad to know that you're feeling well.
Yeah.
That just puts a smile to my face, Gary. It's just so good. It just and I love the spirit responses where it's just casual conversation.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you look at the other one, I thought that you stopped. At first, when I heard this girl come on, I thought it was Melissa. But then, because it almost sounds like her voice, but it wasn't. But what had happened was I was, again, doing some experimentation with the box, and such a beautiful voice that comes through. It's very different if you listen to it.
Let's play it, and then we got to wrap up because we're almost out of time. But let's play this real fast.
You thought that I stopped? I didn't stop. I'm right here.
I'm going to play it one more time real fast.
Yeah.
Or not real fast, but
You thought that I stopped? I didn't stop. I'm right here.
So I had been running the device, and I had paused to do something else. And when I started back up, the girl goes, I thought that you stopped, like that you stopped running your test. It was just a very nice voice.
It is. For folks who want to pick up the box, can they just go to pro-measure.com and order it there, or?
Yep, pro-measure.com.
Take a couple questions here real fast. Brad has asked a question for Gary. Have you ever thought about releasing a kit version for spirit boxes for people who want to put them in custom enclosures, like a basic spirit box board with not as many features?
Well, okay.
I take that as a no.
Yeah, well, Brad, to be honest with you, the stuff that I create, especially the newer stuff, it's a fairly complex design. And, many of the things that I have are software intensive. So, I mean, if somebody wanted a circuit board just to put it into their own enclosure, I mean, you could certainly do that. You just have to buy the product.
You are listening to the best of GhostBox Radio with Greg Bakun. Remember, you can hear full past episodes, see upcoming events, and order books of the authors we have on the show by going to GhostBoxRadio.com. Don't forget to like us over on Facebook. Look us up at GhostBox Radio with Greg Bakun. And finally, please consider supporting me on Patreon. We have a special, unique audio content that you'll not find anywhere else, plus special episodes. On Patreon, you can find me as GhostBox Radio with Greg Bakun.